All right, Alexander, let's discuss what is happening, what happened between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We had tensions flare up. The war in Nagorno-Karabakh was 2 years ago. I was under the impression it was a year ago. Do you know that was? I think it was September 2020, wasn't it? Yeah. 2 years were removed from Nagorno-Karabakh.
I know. It seems.
And it's been frozen.
Yes.
It seems closer, doesn't it?
Yes, I know. It seems very much closer.
Which Azerbaijan gained the upper hand in that conflict, but it was Russia that mediated the stalemate, or call it a stalemate, call it a frozen conflict, a settlement, whatever. It took us to where we are today, and we had tensions flare up. Armenia blames Azerbaijan blames Armenia, but we do have, once again, another Russian-mediated cessation of hostilities.
Yes.
Where are we with this?
Well, we will see whether it sticks, because this has been looking rather more serious than some of the... I mean, we've had plenty of flare-ups since the end of the war in, as you said, late 2000. But there's been more flare-ups recently, and they've been a lot more serious. And there was one thing that made it look as if this was going to become a much more serious affair, and that is that the Armenian leader, Pashinyan, has not only been calling Putin, but he's apparently saying that Armenia is now at risk of direct attack by Azerbaijan, and is looking to invoke the security guarantees which Armenia has under the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Now, if Russia were to accept that, then it would have to come to Armenia's defense, because that's what the CSTO says. If Russia were not to accept that, well, of course, at that point, the whole CSTO structure would be in very considerable jeopardy indeed. So this is a big move by Pashinyan, and it points to some realities. Firstly, I personally have no doubt at all that Azerbaijan is the party which is responsible for this particular flare-up. They got a lot of what they wanted in the last war, but they didn't get all of it. The Russians intervened. They didn't get northern Nagorno-Karabakh. They didn't get some of the most important places in Nagorno-Karabakh. They're looking to get more. They see Russia distracted by the fighting in Ukraine. They see the Russians having to parry these Ukrainian offensives in Ukraine. They may be reading all these headlines about Russian military defeats in Ukraine, and that may have led them to think that the Russians are not going to be interested in what's going on in the southern Caucasus at this time. And of course, whispering in their ear is probably Erdogan, who is, Azerbaijan's friend, patron, if you like, protector, if you will. He's always looking to gain leverage over the Russians, even at the same time as he works with the Russians. So from his point of view, he might not be, shall we say, discouraging the Azerbaijanians from launching an offensive. Erdogan has been busy at the moment. I mean, you've done a very good program, for example, about the situation between Turkey and Greece recently, and how this has, to some extent, been brought under control. But you see Erdogan constantly pushing, constantly testing things. And, it's likely that he was involved in all of that. But from a Russian point of view, given that they've got their hands full with Ukraine at the moment, they want peace and quiet in the southern Caucasus. So that's why Putin and Shoigu's been talking as well to the various defense ministers, have been working very hard to strengthen this ceasefire. And there is a Russian military base in Armenia, and apparently it's been put on alert. The Russian troops there have been put on alert, and one senses that probably behind the talk, there's also some pressure. The Russians are making some pressure. They're saying our troops are present. We're present in Armenia. We're present in the southern Caucasus. we want a ceasefire to take effect immediately. Now, there's been this announcement of the ceasefire. We will see whether it sticks or whether the Azerbaijanians and behind them the Turks decide to test it again.
It's very complicated, the alliances, the web of alliances in this area. I mean, you will end up finding Russia and France on the same side with regards to Armenia. But Russia is also, they also have excellent relationships, an excellent relationship with Azerbaijan as well. So you have Russia, who's going to be working with Turkey and Azerbaijan as well. You have the U.S. very much aligned. I'm not saying that they're against Azerbaijan, but they're also very much aligned with Armenia as well. You have Iran in the mix. Is there any other countries that I'm missing? I mean, very interesting web of alliances and cooperation in the Caucasus. I would imagine that Russia will get a grip on this. That's where I'm leaning towards. But
yes,
what do you think of?
I
all
think
the
that is absolutely right. I mean, the Russians, in theory, hold all the high cards. They have by far the largest military forces in the Caucasus. They have control of all the major roads. They have a base in Armenia. And of course, as you rightly said, they're on good terms with all the regional players. Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia. What this situation needs, in order for it to fully settle, in my opinion, is for Russia to give it its undivided attention. If Russia were to, sort out its problems in Ukraine, concentrate on resolving this crisis in the Caucasus, it might take a couple of months, but they could twist arms in Baku, in Ankara, perhaps to some extent in Yerevan, and in Nagorno-Karabakh itself. And they could probably, I'm pretty sure, negotiate a solution. At the moment, they don't have the ability to give it their undivided attention. So that is why the situation just festers, and why the Russians are acting like a fire brigade, coming to put out a fire when it blazes up, rather than remove the tinders that are always there to catch fire again. But in the meantime, you're absolutely right. The US quietly backs Armenia against Azerbaijan, infuriating Turkey, by the way. More importantly, France is very strongly supportive of Armenia. Macron has been calling Pashinyan as well. So Macron and Putin are in essential agreement about all of this, even whilst they're at total odds over Ukraine. It's a very bizarre mix. And I don't think France or the US are in a position to change things decisively. And I don't think the big powers, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, want France and the US there. But as I said, until the Russians get their act together, sort out their other problems, focus on getting this business in the Caucasus sorted out fully, I think, unfortunately, it will fester.
Yeah, that's why it leads me to believe that this is not really a second front that the collective West has been trying to get in order to distract Russia and bog them down. This is something completely different. I mean, if this was Moldova or Transnistria or Kosovo, Metohija or Georgia, then I would say, okay, it looks like the U.S. or the State Department is trying to stir things up at the second front because of Macron and the U.S. and all these other players that are involved in this region, have different alliances in this region. To me, this has nothing to do really with creating a second front vis-a-vis Ukraine.
I completely agree, because I mean, bear in mind, there are lots of Armenians in the United States, lots of Armenians in France, And they're influential people. I mean, think of the Kardashians. I mean, I don't want to perhaps dwell too much on them, but I mean, a administration in Washington that was prepared to sacrifice Armenia to help to hurt Russia might come in for significant domestic blowback from a political constituency that is generally, I think, supportive of the Democrats. So I don't think this is what this is all about at all. I think if you want to find some ulterior driver behind it, look to Erdogan, who, as I said, is always on the look for leverage, and look also to Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, a very ambitious man, who's also trying to strengthen his position in Azerbaijan itself, and of course internationally, and who's always looking to make gains whilst the Russians are distracted and whilst he thinks he can. You're quite right, by the way. The Russians do have a good relationship with Azerbaijan. One of the things that people perhaps forget is that on the day that Putin announced the SMO, who was he receiving in Moscow, in the Kremlin, I believe, but none other than President Aliyev of Azerbaijan. And they even signed a friendship treaty over the course of that visit.
Yeah. All right. Let's also monitor this this area as well over the next week and see if this does this type of ceasefire, this stalemate holds. Okay. TheDuran.locals.com and go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY.